One of the great features about infinite extent since its first release in 1994 is how easy it is to do type curve matching. From the File menu, I can select some example datasets. We'll start with a confined aquifer. From the View menu, I select Theis confined type curve. I simply match the data points onto the type curve by clicking and dragging with the mouse. When I do that, the calculations over on the right will be updated automatically, giving me my transmissivity, hydraulic conductivity, and storativity. If I go to the File menu and save this data file, that match will be saved with the data. I can also look at a leaky aquifer. From example datasets, I will select Unconfined 1. From the View menu, I can select the Walton leaky type curve. Again, I just click and drag the points onto the type curve to find the best possible match. Looking at the type curve here in red, we have values of R over L. And I want to look at my data and see which one is the best match for the R over L, and I enter that here in the match estimate window. In this case, it's 0.2. I enter that value and click the Apply button. And now I have calculated the leakage factor for this aquifer. The Hantush method is very similar to the Walton method. I match the type curve, and then I enter a value for the match estimate. In this case, it looks like 0.05. And this calculates my Ks over D. Now let's look at the Neuman method. Again, I drag my points to match the type curve. But in the Neuman method, I do an early match and a late match. So here I want to match the early part of the data. I'm going to go with that. I enter an early time match estimate. I'm going to go with 1. And I click the early time button. Now I match the late time. I think that's a good match. I enter a late time estimate. I'm going to go with 0.01. And now my calculations are complete. Now let's look at a partial penetration well example. From the File menu, I select from the example datasets, partial penetration. You can see my partial penetration data displayed here. From the Edit menu, I can go to Aquifer Parameters and select the Partial Penetration tab to enter my partial penetration data. This is the distance from the top of the aquifer to the top of the well screen and from the top of the aquifer to the bottom of the well screen. From the View menu, I can select Hantush Modified Theis Type Curve. Again, I have a type curve, and I'm going to match my data. And my calculations are displayed. In this example, I have 2 observation wells. From the right-click menu, I can choose which well I'm going to match to the type curve. In this case, I'm using well number 2. I can switch to well number 3. And there I have done my match.